And the headline, Texas border counties declare invasion on Texas-Mexico border. Yesterday, we talked about this, and joining us on the phone is someone who has been very active with regard to the southern border, the breach of the southern border, a Republican from the state of Arizona, a congressman, also the chairman of the Border Security Caucus and chairman of the War Powers Caucus. Andy Biggs joins us on the Newsmax hotline. Good morning, sir. How are you today?
Great, Rob. How are you?
Great to have you on. So let's talk about what Texas is doing. I know that your governor and also the governor of the state of Texas started to do an illegals convoy to Washington, D.C. to send a message to Washington, D.C. that clearly hasn't worked. Let's talk about what some Texas counties are doing with regard to the breach of our border and our sovereignty. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so there, Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution requires the federal government to give states the protection of their borders against invasion. And so what you're seeing in Texas, you got some counties declaring that there's a violation, that there's a real invasion going on. The Arizona Attorney General has said there's an invasion going on. And what that does is, quite frankly, in my opinion, it allows the state and local law enforcement to then put hands on people and send them back, or send them to the ports of entry, and to let the Border Patrol agents send them back where they belong. And it's actually important, and it's necessary if we're going to get control of the border.
Let me ask you this, because I'm sure your constituents are angry about this. It used to be that we were, as Republicans, we have always said that the goal of the Democrat Party with regard to the breach of our border is to bring people across the border illegally, get them to a position where they can vote. Fortunately, in state like the state of New York, that was just overturned, illegals being able to vote in New York State. But it was essentially bring people in, create a permanent dependent underclass of brown people, for lack of a better expression, and they will vote in the way that the Democrat Party wants them to vote. Then you see things like what happened in South Texas just a couple of weeks ago with Mayra Flores winning there in a district that has been a Democrat for 150 years. So do you think that, A, that is still the goal of the Democrat Party, and B, is it false? Is it not resonating anymore with Hispanics who come here legally? What are your thoughts?
Well, my first thought is, the Democrats are inherently racist, because that's what they're doing. They're imposing their racism on people of color, saying, well, they'll always be dependent on us, and so we're going to exploit that. The second thing is it's changing dramatically, because it turns out everybody of every demographic group wants to be able to support their families, enjoy a certain lifestyle, have fundamental freedoms, and this administration is saying no. We're gonna basically wipe you out through inflation and bad economy.
Yeah.
We're going to open the border, and and this is their path. By the way, when you asked about is this their plan? Yes, Rob, this is their plan. And that's where it is.
But don't you think this is really kind of dated? Because if you look at how the Democrat Party and the Biden administration have embraced this insane leftist ideology with CRT in schools, this abortion at any cost and at any time, the CRT being taught in school, sex and sexuality being taught in schools. If I'm not mistaken, and I have many Hispanic friends, I do believe that most Hispanics are Christian and would find much of this to be absolutely reprehensible. And so I think that things have changed with the Democrat Party, where it used to be the party of, handouts, we'll give you this, we'll give you that, just vote for us. But now it's an affront to their faith and their family. And so why are they still clinging to this? Because it should be fairly obvious, unless it's not really blossomed like we want it to, that this is being rejected.
Well, it is being rejected, but the reason that some people stick with it is they're kind of caught in a suboptimal path that's hard to get out. And others are not hearing, believe it or not, they're not feeling and understanding that it's the Democrats that are giving them this, not only a bad economy, but also this incredibly woke a culture war that's going on. This notion of drag queens in your schools and the LGBTQ crap. And so what happens is they're not hearing that, but when they do hear it and they realize who's doing it, they say, we don't want that, we reject it. And I think you're going to see more and more of people reject that. And that's one of the great things that Trump did, is he cut across all lines, all demographics, to people. We became the working class party. The Republicans did.
Yeah.
And that's something we'd been missing.
You know, it is kind of interesting. I remember when I was right out of college, I started writing for Rush Limbaugh, writing satire, and I used to look at we looked at Ronald Reagan as the original anti-blue blood Republican candidate and president, and then we took it a step further with Donald Trump, and there are still those. I do believe that we still haven't cleaned house with regard to blue blood rhinos. I certainly believe that Liz Cheney is one of those. I certainly believe that Mitt Romney is one of those. And what do you suppose the future holds for those two and people like them?
Well, they're clinging on because they like the establishment. They're just, we talk about rhinos. I mean, they're really establishment, particularly in Washington, D.C. And you're talking Mitt Romney and Liz Cheney, and there are many more like them. They're going to be relegated to kind of the off the on ramp because they profess republicanism, but they want the establishment, they want the uniparty, they want the swamp, and what's cutting across both parties right now is an anti-swamp, anti-establishment type of basically personality that's coming out in the voter.
Let me ask you this.
And I think
I've heard from at least seen headlines with regard to several members of Congress saying that after presumably we win both houses of Congress, and I do believe it's going to be epic. I'd like your thoughts on that. But that maybe things like the January 6th committee be investigated. Maybe things that, for instance, January 6th, the over-punishment of the prisoners in Washington, D.C., and other Hunter Biden's laptop, Joe Biden's business dealings. Are you down with investigations if we win both houses of Congress in November and clearing up a lot of the things that we've been that have been held from us?
Yeah, I call it oversight, and I call it holding people accountable.
Yeah, that's crazy. In 2022, you're going to do that? Is that still allowed?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, because I get people say, well, we shouldn't do that because we're not as bad as the Democrats. I tell them we're not doing it because with the same motivations as the Democrats. We're going to follow the rules. We're going to get back to the normal system. But the normal system allows us to hold people accountable for criminal conduct and misconduct. And the January 6th committee is absolutely an attempt to destroy President Trump and all of his supporters. It is a partisan witch hunt, and it's having irreparable damage on the institution of Congress itself, which, by the way, Rob, wasn't really popular in the eyes of the public in and of itself.
Yes.
But they made it even less popular. If there was a way to do it, they found it.
Let me throw something at you. I believe that the Democrat Party sees the writing on the wall. I think that the Democrat Party is all in for trying to push their agenda. I call it the class of 1968. These are people who have sat around in faculty lounges and said things like, communism was really the best kind of government. It just hasn't been tried. And we've seen all of these things, the moist dream of the class of 1968 come to fruition. We've not only seen it rejected by the voters, but we've also seen the Supreme Court rejecting each one of these things, chipping away a bit at a time at all of these things, whether it be a voter ID, whether that be Roe v. Wade, which was a gigantic ruling, whether that be concealed carry. Do you suppose that in response that the Democrat Party and the left will do their level best not only to try to stem the bleeding in November, but also to wreck the country as best as possible and as the most that they can before the people vote Republicans in office? What are your thoughts on that?
I think they're going to put pedal to the metal to take the country off the leftist cliff.
Yeah, I do too.
I really do. They're going to get wiped out and so there is no incentive for them to go moderate.
Yeah.
So they're losing these seats one way or the other. So the establishment wing of the Democrats have now gone totally Marxist left, and they're going to just keep pushing it. I mean, the NDAA bill that's out there is filled with woke garbage still, and that's
It's embarrassing. It's upsetting, and I said when Joe Biden, and I don't believe the election was fair in 2020. I don't really care what anybody has to say about it. I've done my own research, and I refuse to let my constitutionally guaranteed right of my opinion to be silenced. Absolute nonsense. But I do believe that some big things are coming in November, and that the American people are going to. If 85% of the country is saying the country is going in the wrong direction, that says to me that. A, we're going in the wrong direction, and B, there's a very small minority of radical leftists steering all of this crap, steering all of this agenda. But most people, even liberals, not leftists, but liberals, are coming together to say, you know what, that's not the country as founded. Do you suppose that Joe Biden has united the country against him rather than what he said would unite them behind his agenda?
Yeah, it turns out he was right. He is the great uniter. I don't think we've seen this kind of polling ever where so many people, I mean, 90% of the country says no. Everybody's rejecting this guy, all of his programs and policies, and says we're going the wrong direction. Now, what scares me is I think you got the 10% who say that he's in the right direction, but I would guess you got another 15% say, yeah, we're going the wrong direction because we're not going crazy enough.
Exactly.
Communist left.
Exactly.
So,
I think those are the people. I think those are the people who are directing the public discourse, and people are rejecting them wholesale. I see this getting. We're running short on time. I want to talk about something horrendous that happened yesterday, and get your reaction. Yesterday, all of us were shocked, I say, to see Nancy Pelosi on an Italian beach bearing cleavage. Congressman, were you as well traumatized like the rest of the country upon seeing this picture in social media?
Yes, I had to put ice packs on my eyeballs and then wear dark glasses the rest of the day.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I appreciate you joining. I was mentioning to you off the air, one of the most glorious places in Arizona. And my wife, by the way, was complaining about the heat here yesterday. It was 98. And I said, well, we got Andy Biggs on tomorrow. He'll laugh about that.
I am laughing.
98 degrees. Come on. And by the way, Arizona, they always say it's a dry heat. But no, when it's 115, it's hot. But one town in Arizona that I've been to that I enjoyed was Sedona. Absolutely
beautiful. My
God, it's so gorgeous. You drive through about 70 miles of places that you think, my God, if I ever got stranded here, I'd be toast. But it's a lovely community, and Arizona is a wonderful state. Representative, I appreciate your time today. Keep fighting the good fight, and I hope that you, with other Republicans in Washington, D.C., will be able to stem the damage a little bit as we go into November, and then lead the charge of the American people once that happens. Thanks for joining me. You're all over social media. I know you're on Getter and on Truth Social. Any place else where everybody else can find you, sir?
Any social media that's out there, I'm probably on it. So.
All right, my friend. Have a glorious day. Thanks for joining.